Hello, wonderful. I'm Paige, and something big is changing in society that we need to talk about. The rise of veganism. 10 years ago, most people didn't even know that veganism existed. Plant-based options in restaurants were pretty sparse and sad. There's been a significant pivot towards plant-based cuisine within the last 5 years. Today, vegan products are everywhere you go, and this is only the beginning. Animal rights is a growing social justice movement that is exploding in popularity. It's becoming apparent that we are in the midst of a global revolution. This momentum is due to education through the mainstream media, such as documentaries and content creators who are exposing the inherent cruelty within animal agriculture, as well as other industries which are profiting from exploiting animals. Celebrities, influencers, and even Olympic champions like Serena Williams are going vegan. Billie Eilish uses her fame to further the movement by promoting veganism during interviews and even at her concerts. She's appeared in documentaries informing people about veganism, as well as a YouTube video where she was eating vegan wings and nuggets with a reach of 8.2 million views. Joaquin gave a very emotional Oscar speech going into the gory details of the dairy industry, and directly after the speech, he rescued a calf from the dairy industry to take him to a sanctuary where he can live out his life in safety with people who truly care for him. He also narrated the documentary Dominion, which is the first link in the description, and I urge you to watch the entire film at least once. It can be difficult to get through, but it certainly is worth it. Leading activists such as Earthling Ed, Joey Carbstrong, and Tash Peterson represent millions of activists all over the world who speak up for animals, encouraging compassion towards them by confronting the public about their choice to use animal products, which supports beyond cruel industries. Animal rights activists are making it increasingly difficult for people to continue ignoring the truth about the disturbing things that these animals are being forced to go through. Tash Peterson, for example, has 160 million views on her YouTube channel alone. She also gains publicity through her disruptions, which raises a ton of awareness about what animals endure for food, fur, leather, and more. She's made international news with her protests. Each of these activists, among many others, have been invited onto major news stations, stages, and podcasts to dive in to the rising controversy. Ed has given TED Talks and even spoke at 2 of Google's headquarters. Joey has given a speech at the Oxford Union during a debate on veganism. An organization called Direct Action Everywhere has paved the way for political progress in the movement with Measure DD, resulting in the first ban of factory farming in Berkeley, California. That's right, a ban on factory farming. Burberry, Gucci, Versace, Michael Kors, and Marc Jacobs have all adopted fur-free policies due to protesting campaigns. These protests continue to be very successful and universal as the movement has spread worldwide. It's known that it only takes 3.5% of the population taking direct action in order to create monumental political shifts and changes in public opinion. And that metric was based on movements which occurred before social media was a thing. I personally have gone vegan after coming across Earthling Ed's famous speech back in 2019, which now has reached 5.5 million views. That speech has led me to watch that documentary, Dominion, which again is linked in the description below. And after watching that, I went vegan overnight. There was no way I could pay for such a, well, hellhole. Activists on social media are thanked every day by people like me who are so grateful that they've inspired them to change. It brings many people to tears in realization that if it wasn't for activists, they would have never questioned their actions that caused immense suffering to thousands of individuals out of sheer ignorance. Awareness is also being raised around the great health benefits and the essential environmental impacts that a vegan diet just so happens to have. Many environmentalists, such as the famous Greta Thunberg, has exposed the overwhelming resource-intensive inefficiency of animal agriculture and the detrimental effects it continues to have on the planet. As environmentalists immerse themselves into plant-based communities, the increased exposure to and acknowledgement of animal cruelty causes many to make the lifelong switch to veganism. A YouTube channel called Goodiful with 1.6 million subscribers centers their content around vegan cooking and environmentalism. Many vegan foodie accounts on social media are going viral, receiving tons of support from people making the switch. The hashtag vegan has accumulated well over 50 billion views on TikTok. Although many people find their way to veganism as environmentalists and health enthusiasts, I would never want to conflate a plant-based diet, health concerns, or environmentalism with veganism. Animal rights is a political stance in favor of abolishing all exploitation of animals, which aligns with the ethical philosophy of veganism. Veganism is the practice of avoiding exploitation and use of animals for any reason, as far as practical and possible. So veganism isn't about health. It's not a diet, though a vegan diet is included in the practice of veganism, and it has some important distinctions from a plant-based diet. It just so happens to be a lot healthier for us and the planet. But veganism and animal rights is all about making the world a safer place for animals. Growth of the animal rights movement is also apparent when we look at how many mainstream channels are using the hype of the vegan topic for content. Good Mythical Morning, with 19 million subscribers, has about 20 videos on the topic of vegan food. Even though they aren't arguing for veganism, videos like this drive conversation around animal rights. Also with 19 million subscribers, BuzzFeed has over 50 videos on the topic of veganism, driving huge awareness for animal rights. Many of these videos test people's ability to tell the difference between vegan products and their traditional counterparts. Many times they guess that the animal product is vegan, and vice versa. People literally cannot tell the difference, and it's healthier for your body. College nutrition courses now include a plant-based diet in their curriculum, teaching about the health benefits. There's no arguing this point. Now that we have the data of plant-based participants in the largest studies of the world on diet, we now know of the great health benefits of ditching meat, eggs, and even dairy, as it reduces risk and even can reverse heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. Businesses and economists have quickly realized that vegan products are in demand. The largest food producers, such as Tyson and Nestle, have created entire vegan lines. They are also investing directly into plant-based alternatives. Plant-based meat sales grew by over 150% in 2020 compared to 2019, while dairy-free alternatives increased by 86%. This is just the beginning. Funding for mock meats grew to over $2 billion from $270 million in 2020. It's predicted that by 2030, plant-based foods will reach $143 billion. It's predicted that plant-based foods will grow to $1.4 trillion by 2050. Vegan alternatives continue to become much cheaper as demand increases, and may even become cheaper than their traditional counterparts. A lot of people tell me that not everyone wants to ditch meat, and of course that's true. But there are still people who are sexist and racist which is why we have laws protecting vulnerable groups from people with harmful views of discrimination. If everyone could be on the same page of social justice issues, then we probably wouldn't need so many laws. It was Martin Luther King who reminded us many times that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. He believed that nonviolence is a way of life, a way to seek understanding and center love in decision-making. Public backlash, polarity, and even rage towards vegans is a telling sign that the animal rights movement is in progression. Once you truly understand what it takes to farm animals, it becomes very clear that there is no way to exploit anyone without causing immense suffering to them. Farmers, in order to do what is demanded of them, must entirely disregard the autonomy and individuality of animals, their ability to feel pain, form loving relationships, and important preferences, like not being killed. Just like us. When you consume or purchase any animal product whatsoever, when you support animal testing, zoos, aquariums, or breeders of any kind, it is intrinsically guaranteed that someone was forced into great suffering, and in the vast majority of cases, neglected, mutilated, and brutally killed. All of these circumstances are so easily avoidable with little to no sacrifice from yourself. It's a huge misconception to assume that living vegan is somehow less enjoyable or it doesn't support optimal health. In fact, it's quite the opposite. If you ask anyone who's been vegan for a long time, we don't miss the literal decaying flesh of tortured victims or their foul-smelling secretions. I, for one, enjoy my food more than ever since going vegan. Learning to veganize the dishes I ate growing up was fun. It was exciting to discover new cuisines and techniques in the kitchen. I've expanded my palate in more ways than I ever would have otherwise. It has never felt restrictive for me, and most vegans share this experience. Before civilization as hunters and gatherers, we took everything we could get our hands on, and there hasn't been enough contemplation on if we do need to harm animals for food. This makes sense, considering we have evolved advantageously to compartmentalize and distance ourselves from their suffering in order to consume them more comfortably. It can be a really big pill to swallow. Realizing that we don't have to continue causing suffering to trillions of individuals every single year. And we ourselves never had to, at least since times of modern agriculture. This truth can be especially difficult to face since our self-image seeks to maintain and protect a perspective of purity within ourselves. But it's not fair to turn a blind eye to the animals and assume that you know exactly what you're paying for. And well, since it's always happened, then it must be perfectly okay in today's world. Consciously or unconsciously, you have victims. And it's not okay to laugh or walk away without any actual consideration or education. So please, click the link in the description. Watch the documentary Dominion to its end before you come to any conclusion. I also encourage you to watch the next video in this series to answer all of your questions and the common assumptions leading people to believe that this isn't as big of an issue as it most certainly is. The National Institute of Health has released a systematic review which examined the psychological effects of slaughterhouse workers and their linked to crime rates. They found that there is a clear relationship between this type of employment and negative outcomes, both at the individual level and for broader society. Slaughterhouse workers have described suffering from trauma and shock, causing PTSD, paranoia, psychosis, guilt, shame, anxiety, and depression. Employees on the kill floor showed the highest rates of aggression, anxiety, and depression. Statistics indicate an association between the presence of slaughterhouses and crime rates. especially rape arrests. It's not surprising considering the foundation of farming animals for any purpose is sexual exploitation. Many times these workers are desperate for employment. I don't think anyone with a slither of sanity enjoys working at a slaughterhouse. But some people who already suffer from serious mental health conditions actually seek out this kind of work. The fact that a serial killer can direct their dangerous impulses into their jobs and it not be considered unlawful is beyond disturbing. It's not uncommon for slaughterhouse workers to laugh at, degrade, and become violent within their domestic relationships, as well as with strangers. Activists who risk their lives and freedoms just to capture footage within these industries have exposed how apathetic and psychopathic these workers become. Beating, sexualizing, and objectifying animals is extremely common in these absolute hellholes. So I wouldn't recommend supporting them. The industry spends billions of dollars every year to have you believing that animals are happy to be farmed on pastures where they're loved and protected. This is humane washing. It doesn't exist. That fantasy wouldn't produce much product. Either way, when you pay for someone to be killed, they had a life. They had friends, they had family, they screamed for their life, and you bet they fought for it too. As society continues to align with compassion, as well as just logic, it's inevitable that we will see a vegan future. Just by choosing to be vegan, you can personally reduce the abuse, mutilation, sexual assault, and murder of around 200 animals every single year, directly through supply and demand. I could never imagine witnessing what these animals go through and continue supporting that by literally eating them and their secretions. I mean, it's disgusting. If we as humans were experiencing the exact same terror as them, you would feel the same way. Don't be speciesist. Stop paying for animals to be abused and brutally killed. This is your chance to join the movement well before the law enforces you to. So, which side of history are you standing on?